I love you. This is the month's favorite words because it is the month of love. It is the month of February where love and is celebrated and created. This is Amazingly Chen. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today for continuing this story of our love series. My favorite Bible story is love story from the Bible. So we are at love story number 2, which is the story of Jacob and Rachel. The previous time we had Isaac and Rebecca. Now we're talking about their children. All right, let's go ahead. Now Jacob and Rachel, the boy meets girl at the well. This is the story of love at first sight. One afternoon, a young woman named Rachel, beautiful in form and wonderful in appearance, watered her flock of sheep at a well near Haran, an outpost of an ancient city of Ur. On the same particular afternoon, a young traveler called Jacob was there too. He chatted with the shepherds, telling them that his family had originally come from this area. Now they pointed towards a woman in the distance, saying she was the daughter of his mother's brother Laban. Jacob was sent by his father Isaac to find a wife from a relative's family. He met Rachel at the well. For him, it was love at first sight. He went to the well and he single-handedly moved a great stone cover off the well. Usually wells are covered with a broad flat stone, too large for one man to move. So the shepherds who had gathered there waited until there was a group of shepherds to move it. Perhaps Jacob was trying to impress Rachel. Jacob has made this long and arduous journey of 500 miles and now found himself at journey's end with the woman of his dreams. Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. We can assume that at first sight of the lovely and beautiful Rachel, Jacob was in love. Love at first sight. Yet even more beautiful in this divine story is a divine move of God in their meeting. He was in the right place with the right person and his emotions spilled over. God led Jacob and Rachel to each other. Genesis 29:10-11 says, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. Interestingly, it wasn't Rachel that cried of meeting a handsome man, but Jacob. He seemed to know with certainty that Rachel would be his bride. Rachel ran to her father and told him about the young traveler. Rachel's father Laban ran out to meet Jacob and invited him to stay with him. Jacob stayed with Laban's family within a month. During this time, he had fallen deeply in love with Rachel and determined to marry her. In order to marry her, Rachel's father convinced Jacob to work for him for 7 years and he could marry Rachel. Jacob agreed. Jacob loved Rachel so much that he labored for her for 7 years. But they seemed like only a few days to him because he loved her so much. That's Genesis 29:20. Love sometimes makes things in life more bearable, the same as Jacob's situation. Such was his love for Rachel that he pledged to work for his uncle Laban for 7 years in return for her hand in marriage. So Genesis 29:20 says, Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of her love for her. Rachel and Jacob were in love. So Jacob approached Laban for permission to marry her. Money was involved in marriage. A Jewish family tried to provide each daughter with a dowry, which was property. A dowry is a property handed over by her family and afterwards owned by the wife. It was her share of the family inheritance, enough to act as an income for her should she be abandoned or widowed. A prospective bridegroom was expected to give financial compensation to the family of the bride to make up for the loss of their daughter. But Jacob had come empty-handed and could not produce the normal bride price for a soon-to-be-wife. So Laban agreed that his daughter might marry Jacob, but stipulated that a bride price Jacob must contract to work for him for 7 years, as 7 years is the cycle for sacred one in the ancient world. Jacob agreed because he loved Rachel so much, and Jacob and Rachel settled down to wait. The story gets sticky. What neither of them realized was that Laban had agreed to let his daughter marry Jacob, but had not specified which daughter it would be. Rachel had an older sister, Leah, not so beautiful, and Laban had quietly pointed out that the older sister in a family was usually married before her younger sister. Does it happen to your family? Neither of the young lovers has understood the implications of this statement. When the 7 years were over, Jacob demanded his bride, and Laban prepared a wedding feast, though the Hebrew word suggests it was more of a drinking banquet. The bride was dressed in the finest clothes, including rich headdress and veil that covered her face. When the feasting was over, her father led her, still veiled, into the room of her bridegroom, and the bride and Jacob made love. By this time, Jacob may have had a considerable amount of drink. Of course, it's his wedding day. What Jacob didn't realize until the morning dawned was that the bride in his bed was not Rachel, but Leah. He had been tricked into marrying his sister. It's too late to go back. But there was not much that could be done. During the night, he had taken Leah's virginity, and in tribal society, this meant she was his wife, whether you like it or not. But he never forgave her for what she had done to him. She is usually described as unloved in English translation and hated in Hebrew translation. The upside was that polygamy was acceptable at the time. Jacob now insisted that Rachel will become his wife as well. Laban agreed, but you must work for another 7 years again. Jacob has no choice. He had to accept what Laban's bargain. So after the ceremonial week of the wedding to Leah was over, Rachel married to Jacob, becoming his second but most loved wife. Jacob desired his spouse to be Rachel because he adored her and loves her dearly. And he became her father's servant and sacrificed 7 years again of his life to appease Laban. What does this love show us? The story of Rachel and Jacob. Although this is a complicated story, the message is clear. That work for the one you want, and in the end, you'll be rewarded with something incredible. And that is an inspiring story of love between husband and wife, like of that Jacob and Rachel. It is one of the greatest love stories that we can read in the Bible. It is a story that shows a man should pursue a woman. Lesson number 1, for Rachel. Rachel is a hardworking lady, hardworking woman. She is a shepherd. She is busy, self-employed, working to provide for her family. Before even she faced her husband-to-be, she was already active and working and doing the will of God in her life. Lesson number 2. Rachel is not concerned about when, where, and how he is meeting her Jacob. The story of Rachel and Jacob is a proof that God has a plan, and his will be able to carry out who should we marry. It was not by chance that they met at the well on the day. It was destiny. We don't have to go off to the beaten path to get a man. Prayer works. God does the work. Jacob stayed with Laban, and Laban offered to pay Jacob for his continued labor. And the wage is Rachel to become his wife. He was willing to do what is necessary to have her, because Jacob found Rachel worthy enough for his labor for 7 years. Actually, it became 14 years because Leah and Rachel together. The Bible says that his love is so strong that his work is counted, seemed to have only a few days for him. It's just that he was tricked by his father-in-law and uncle Laban. Jacob labored and did not walk away when times got hard. He worked until he earned in her hand for marriage. Lesson number 3. We are all valuable. You are valuable, and so is your love. Your future husband should be willing to work for the bride, for the future, for her future. His heart should not say that I'm going to do the least I can to get this woman. Every man's work may be different from another, but Jacob has his own work to perform in order to earn Rachel. As your future husband is coming, the working and earning should be in action. So let love be in action for this month of February. Have an amazing time with your family. I'm wearing this Chinese dress for my husband. I married to a Chinese man, and we are celebrating the Chinese New Year every year. So I'm wearing red, a celebration of love and a celebration of the New Year, Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, and also it's Family Day in Canada. So have fun in your celebrations, and happy Family Day, Canada. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching Amazingly Chen. See you in my next video. Bye-bye for now.